Hi everybody, my name is Jimmy and welcome back to Jimmy Does Knitting. This is my knitting podcast where I pick a topic and I go from there. You can catch me as Jimmy Does Knitting on Ravelry, Instagram, Discord, Ko-Fi, all of the places Jimmy Does Knitting. I'm not on Facebook. Should I get on Facebook? Let me know. As always, everything that I mention will be in the notes below, including patterns I may not memorize what the name is. And we'll go from there. Today, we are talking about how I'm doing better about knitting with the yarn I have. So that is, if that interests you and whatever objects I'm doing, that's great. Let's get into it then. So my approach to yarn is I don't usually, although sometimes it happens, buy like random skeins of yarn. I usually have a purpose for the yarn. So my stash mostly is leftovers. It is like a black sweaters quantity. I can't resist. I need to have a black sweaters quantity. Like if I find a yarn I like and it's a sweaters quantity in black, I'll buy it because I know I'll knit it. And the other one is I buy for a specific project. So I try to keep things to a minimum. Mr. Does Knitting installed a shelf above my yarn stash so I can no longer really expand my yarn collection. I need to use what I have and knit with it, which is good because I bought the yarn with a purpose and I enjoy it, or I enjoy the yarn and I just need to use it. I use a lot of it for swatching, so that helps. And then I just knit with it. So let me get into the projects that I'm knitting with, like, let's say stash yarn or yarn that's been sitting with a purpose that I haven't really been doing anything with, and we'll go from there. Let's start with this big one over here first. This is in a huge tote bag. I don't have really knitting project bags, but I do have big knitting projects. And this one you haven't seen a lot of on this channel, although I've been working on it behind the scenes. It has not been a priority. And it's a Guernsey, right? A Guernsey, however you want to say it. And I'm getting very close on it. I don't want the sleeve to fall out, but I have almost a full one for you. So I've been filming little clips as I've been going on, and there will be a summary of this. But this is based, like the idea is based off of a traditional Cornish Guernsey. And I have a bunch of books behind me that I'm referring to. One specifically is suggested by Anton from the Raw Wool Company. For his Silly Guernsey, he used this, which one is it? This one. Used Cornish Guernseys and Knit Frocks by Mary Wright. This is it. Oh, by the way, I have Halloween nails. I'm filming this before Halloween. It is actually October 22nd. I tend to pre-film a little bit. That way I can like stagger if I need to. Anyway, Cornish Guernseys and Knit Frocks. I've used some other ones in here. I have a collection of about 4 or 5 books. I like those because they're like sort of old school, and I use them a lot as stitch dictionaries. And I don't know. I just like it, and it's fun to make a sweater. And a Guernsey is like super easy to make. So if you're designing your first one for yourself, I suggest you go and check that out. But what this is it's it's attached, but it's a top or bottom up in the round, and then you split for the yoke, and then you do one sleeve top down, another sleeve top down. And this is my version. So this is huge because this is for my brother-in-law, and he is from Cornwall, as he says, but so he always wanted one. I've always wanted to knit one of these, so I approached Woolyknit. Woolyknit was very generous in offering me a discount on yarn to make this project happen, and I chose their pretty basic stuff. So they have the 5-ply Guernsey wool now, and this is in the navy color. This is the traditional one. A lot of Guernseys were knit in this color, but not all. Like a wedding one was knit in white. Some villages had like a lighter blue. Some had like green and red ones for some occasions. There was like a gray one for church. And then also, it's whatever fiber you could find back in the day is what they used to knit it with. So it wasn't necessarily this. This sort of happened when mass-produced wool came into fashion. And this was primarily in the UK. There's definitely a Guernsey culture in the Netherlands, which is where I live, and then some in Scandinavia, although those are slightly different. So that's kind of something that I wanted to do. I'm considering this my epic knit of the year. It's not a hard knit, but it's sort of like one of those checklist things. Let me take you through the garment. So it starts with the 2x2 ribbing. If you look on the back, I have initials. Can you see that? I put his initials in here so that way when he washes up on shore, we can tell who it is because his initials are in his Guernsey, and nobody else can have this. And I did this moss stitch with like this 3-stripe pearl stitch thing, and I saw that a lot in the Cornish knit frocks sort of thing, and I wanted to incorporate it and use the moss stitch as a filler stitch. And then I heard somebody, maybe it was Di Gilpin, saying that the musician's motif was a very Cornish sort of motif. And so what I did was I had the V's from that. I separated the moss stitch part of that and I put it as more of a filler stitch. And then I did the cables in a way that it sort of like flowed with the V's was the intention. So if you look, I'm hoping this is showing up, but the V's kind of go into the cables and they like dance around and it frames the face. And then when you get to these edges, it's more of a moss stitch, just not the V's. So that is how I determined that. I just did a 3-needle bind off on the shoulder and a regular collar. There are different variations. It looked acceptable for the region as far as I could tell. And yeah, so it's really nice and sturdy. It's a sturdy garment. We have a gusset that you knit in as part of the sleeve and part of the armhole. And so what that does is it raises the yoke, but it allows for free movement. So these people were wearing these on ships and they were fishing, and so they didn't want to get caught in a net and dragged under because that would be very bad. So the garments were fairly tight, but the gusset allowed for some movement, and then the sleeves were a bit tighter too. So that's a unique feature about the Guernseys. I just did like a knit gusset, I guess. And then here's where we start veering off. This is based on like Cornish motifs, but the one on the shoulder is a Betty Martin stitch, which I really like. And this is more of a Yorkshire motif because they live in Yorkshire now. So I wanted to include some of that. And then I ended it with this 3 pearl row thing because I thought that echoed the front, and then just a regular sleeve. I am concerned that this like stitch part is going to be a bit too long. Theoretically, it should be about like down to here. Like, so if this is my elbow, probably like down to here-ish. So it should be before the elbow. I'm hoping. If not, it will be all right. So that's what I've done with that. I've knit the whole body on 3.25 millimeter needles. It's suggested to knit it on like 2.75 or 3 millimeter needles, which is like a US 1 or something like that. He's not going fishing in this. He's wearing it around the house. I would say Guernsey wool is a 5-ply, so it's like a slightly thicker, bouncier, high twist, like fingering weight, let's say. I'd probably put it at maybe a sport, but that's why you get this beautiful texture. It allows for more warmth to be held, and it's really nice. So that is a quick summary of the Guernsey that I'm making. I am on the final sleeve. I'm going to drop some stitches, and I want to have this done by the end of the month. So the idea is that actually I finished this weekend. I have another sweater that I want to finish by the end of the month, which is 9 more days. And I have another whip that I want to finish by this weekend because I can and I just need it off the needles. So that is what's happening with that. I have used, now the way that I did the shoulders and like the neck shaping, because it's bottom up, I did it 2 at a time so I was consistent, because my notes on this pattern are like sparse at best. Like the chart for this is just, there is no chart for it. I just made it up and then just kind of like looked at my knitting as I went. So I had 2 cones. So I've used up 1 cone. This is the second part of the second cone. And I used a little bit of a third so I could knit everything 2 at a time on the shoulders. And it's taking a lot less yarn than I anticipated, let's say. So knitting from stash, I got this, I talked to Woolyknit in like May, maybe April about this, and I didn't start this until September. So I needed to do this. I'm starting this right now, and it will be done soon. It will be done in time for Christmas, and I think that will be all right. But there's another Guernsey in front of me because I think I have like five cones of these, maybe. I have way too much, so I will make one for myself when I'm bored or when I want one. So that's all right. I have some plans for that, but it's a if and when sort of situation. I mean, it does take a long time. This especially because this is much larger than I normally knit. This would be like a size 5 on most patterns, 5 or 6. And yeah, so there's that. But it's not hard to do. It's not hard to do at all. And anyway, I like this yarn a lot. I think it's great. Out of the Woolyknit yarns that I've tried, which isn't many, I've tried their British Aran and their British 4-ply. I like the Guernsey one the best, if I'm going to be honest. So that is my Cornish Guernsey. Let me get on to another sweater. Let's go for another sweater. Speaking of knitting from stash, I bought some 10 balls of Cascade 220 in black, of course. I think I have 1 ball in here. It's just black. I think it's color 855. It's a worsted weight. It's really nice wool, actually. It's my first time using Cascade 220. But I bought it like a year ago to make a very specific sweater that I have in mind, which I'm going to call the Jimmy Does Diamond Sweater. What I want. I'm knitting stuff that will like raise my profile or like get me money or something to like get this knitting at least paying for itself, if not making me money. That's the idea right now. And this yarn and the sweater idea are gonna have to wait until I get a job. It's one of those ones that's going to take a very long time and it's not going to generate anything because there's no way. I'd have to chart out the whole sweater, I think, because I don't know how to explain this to people, like what's in my head. So I'll stop trying to explain it. But anyway, it's a difficult sweater. I can always order more Cascade 220. I still want to make it in Cascade 220. But I've had 10 skeins of Cascade 220 worsted weight in my stash just sitting there. And that is unacceptable because that takes a lot of room. And also, I mean, I'm just knitting worsted weight black sweaters. So I wanted to, and I asked last podcast about a half fisherman's rib or brioche knit sweater. And I settled on the mini season sweater by Ozetta. Now, this is actually a child's pattern. It is a child's sweater. And the deal is I'm skinny. I'm really skinny. I normally knit like around a 40-ish, 42-inch circumference chest. And the pattern goes up to 40.5 inches. And I know that I am a loose knitter, especially when it comes to brioche or half fisherman's rib. So that's why I chose that pattern. This is what I've done. I mean, you can't really see it. It's not that exciting. It's a half fisherman's rib. Maybe you can see the rib a little bit better. I have definitely, this is where the armhole is, and I'm on the body for this. So I'm really honestly just following this children's pattern in the largest size, knowing that it will come out a little bit bigger than the recommended size, and I'm just knitting the body and the sleeves longer so they fit, which is what you kind of do with any top-down sweater. This is a drop shoulder sweater, and I like this method better than the English tailoring style, even though I have an English tailoring style drop shoulder sweater for sale. But what it is the back panel is just cast on and you use short rows to shape and not this weird at the end of everything. And it works really nice with the half fisherman's rib. I added a collar. That is that. It is nothing special. I liked this neck detail. That's part of the reason why I did it. And I liked the cast on because I thought it had a little bit more structure than some other ones that I had. Because this stitch grows and it's going to be floppy and all this other stuff. So that is that. But yeah, recommended needles, recommended stuff, just knitting it longer. I will also finish this in this month. So I'll get, I think this is the 5th. I think I'll get like 6, maybe 7 balls of the Cascade 220 out of my stash, which is pretty good. And I will have this, once again, I've talked about it before. I'm obsessed with the fashion that goes on at the coffee place that we go to is like, especially for Amsterdam. Amsterdam struggles with fashion, but everybody's so fashionable and there's so many brioche or half fisherman rib sweaters that come in there and I needed a big one. Do I have one brioche sweater and one half fisherman's rib sweater already? Yes, but they're not in worsted weight and I wanted a worsted weight one. And I can make one, right? Like that's how it works is I don't need this sweater, but I really want this sweater so I can make them. So that is the story behind this one. It's not too special. It's going pretty quickly. It's very rhythmic. Oh, the one other thing that I wanted to say is I put up a tutorial about this, but there are 2 ways to knit half fisherman's rib. There's the way she suggests in the pattern, and then there's the way that I like to knit it, because I like to knit it with the half brioche. I know people don't whatever about brioche. I love a brioche, and I love the rhythmic nature of like the slipping and stuff like that. So I converted this, which really is not difficult, just to knit it with the half brioche style. And you can tell the like crosses there. You can see I do it in half brioche. And I just, does it make much of a difference? No, but to me it's a little bit more rhythmic and I don't have to pay as much attention and I like that better. So I just went with doing it that way. For those of you who don't know, and I don't think this is giving anything away with the pattern, but for the pattern, it recommends on the wrong side, you knit everything and then flat, let's say just flat. So on the wrong side, you knit everything. On the right side, you purl the pearls, but for the knits, you knit the stitch below and then bring the yarn up. What I like to do is on the wrong side, I slip the pearls with the yarn in front, and so then you have like the 2 stitches, which creates this X on the needle, and then you knit the knits. And on the right side, you just knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. But when you knit, you obviously knit the 2 stitches together, like the band that went over, the yarn over. I have a tutorial on this, like I said, that's easily explained, where I'm getting myself confused. Anyway, I preferred that. That's the only really big modification that I'm making to this pattern. I'm really enjoying it. I think this would also, because it's in children's sizes, it like will really be a good, when I want to do brioche thing, hop on the interwebs, get some like drops of big merino, and then knit some for the kids in my life, because I do crave like a brioche type of knit every once in a while, and I think that that would be a good one to do. Now, I have a cardigan to show you next, so let me get that. For this cardigan, I'm using this Drops Baby Merino, and it's a fingering weight, I wouldn't say full play, it's fingering weight, it's superwash, it's not my favorite. What I did is I bought 12 colors for my Spectrum Blip scarf, which is coming out December 1st, great for all your Advent needs. But I didn't use 2 because I swatched with 2 and they didn't fit in with the rest of the color palette that I was going for. So one is this really light green. I had about 25 grams of this left, which is a perfect amount to make a Chianti Cardi. The Chianti Cardi is my own design. It sort of looks a bit sexual at the moment. But what it is essentially like a sweater for a wine bottle. You put little buttons in front to make it look like a cardigan, and I'm doing that. So this is the green color that I had. I'm knitting this on 9-inch circulars. I like to start with the increases for in double pointed needles, and then I do everything else on circulars. I have seen versions of this where people have knit it without the increases, and it's just essentially like a sleeve, sort of like a zarf is technically what it's called, but you know, like when you eat your coffees and there's that like paper thing around it. The words escape me, but I've seen people do it without the bottom of this. Okay, I just noticed the audio went out. I have no idea how long it's been out for, so we'll see how this goes. I'm sorry, my microphone and my computer are not cooperating lately. As I was saying, Chianti Cardi, it's great stash buster, which is what I've made, I don't know, like 6 or 7 of these. I busted a decent amount of stash making these, and they're pretty quick. The cable one that I'm making right now is the most beautiful one, I'm not going to lie, but it is also, it takes a bit of time. Stripy ones, easiest, most fun. Anyway, all that to say, I'm making this as part of using my own yarn, the projects I need. This is going to go to Stuart at the Wool Patch. Stuart is doing a Christmas window in his shop. I'm going to link everything below. And what he's doing is getting a bunch of wine bottles essentially and stacking them like a tiered cake. And he's using the Chianti cardigan as like the tree. So a bunch of green little cardigans are going on the wine bottles, and then he'll stack them. So I wanted to make one. I mean, it's a bit light green. It's not like the most Christmassy green, but this is what I had in my stash. So I figured I would make one and give it to him, send it to him. If you want, you can participate or just buy this for yourself. It's a great holiday gifting sort of thing. And buy the pattern. I'm using the code PATCHMAS, PATCHMAS 24, and it will get you 25% off the pattern. You can use it for whatever you want. This is an all year round one, or you can make a green one and send it to Stuart. But I figured I would have a little bit of fun. I'd offer a discount code. It's good until December 24th if you want it. And yeah, so it's just a little bit of fun. It's a little bit of Christmas. I figured I'd join in. I had some stash yarn that's appropriate, and I would send it along. So I will be doing that with my Chianti cardigan. All right, and then the next 2 things that I have are not started yet, but like I am running out of yarn to knit with, so I'm starting these projects. So hold on one second, let me grab them and I'll get into it. First one is this naturally like very dark brown blackish wool from Woollentwine Fiber Studio. The little logo is right here. It's by Eula, and this is the DK weight / Shetland / Welsh Mountain DK, 50% Shetland, 50% Black Welsh Mountain. It's 230 meters per 100 grams. And this yarn feels amazing. It feels really like bouncy, and it's naturally dark. So I think one thing that I'm trying to get into is just using undyed yarn, specifically naturally black yarn. I guess the Welsh Mountain Sheep is like the one that's like the closest, but there are some other ones. So I wanted to try it out. Eula is doing a great job with her dyes. Her yarn just looks so amazing. It's all naturally plant dyed, and it's no superwash, all cruelty free. The bases look really amazing. If they're anything else like this one, which I'm sure they are, I'm sure they're phenomenal. And she has some beautiful natural colors, and she gets really like vibrant stuff with it too. So go and check her out. Anyway, like I said, I will order sweater quantities of a black yarn because I know I'm going to use it. And I'm at the point where I'm running out of sweater quantities, and I sort of always need to have a sweater on my needles. Even though, let's be honest, on sweaters, I lose money so bad when I write them up, and it's just, I hate grading, it's a pain in the ass, and it takes forever, but I love making sweaters, so I'm just gonna lose money and make the sweaters. But I'm going to use the sweater quantity worth of this, and I am going to make something based off of, here it is. In this book, it's mostly Dutch ones This is what, if you speak multiple languages, sometimes you just read something and know what it says and don't realize that it's in a different language. Anyway, this is in Dutch, and this is like a revisited version. It's this is Trouwe Verzameld, and it's 112 historic sweaters with diagrams from 63 Fisher places, is what it translates to. But basically, this is a giant Guernsey book. They have some really good pictures. I don't want to show you necessarily all the things, but like they have like somebody knit something, and then they have like a chart and a historic thing that it's based off of, and it tells you the different ones. Anyway, there's this motif that I've seen in this book and another book that I'm obsessed with. Let me make sure I have the right side. And it's maybe better seen here. This central panel. So I'm going to make a sweater out of this thing, this motif, with this, and it will be really nice. It's not going to be a Guernsey like my previous sweater, but I think the idea is to cast this on fairly soon, because I have, this is the only sweaters quantity worth of yarn that I have in my stash. I have requested yarn for a couple of ideas that I have from other companies. So I'm probably going to get like a couple sweater quantities coming in pretty soon. But for now, we're doing really good. For now, we're really good at knitting with our stash. Anyway, so that's gonna happen. This is the motif. Another great way to use my stash is to swatch. I swatch Romania this weekend. I probably did like 6 or 7 swatches for some ideas. Some work out, some don't, but it's really like also putting a dent in my stash. And then the last one is, I'm gonna put this book back 1 second. So the last sweaters quantity of yarn that I have is a shirt for my mother-in-law. And it is, I did the swatch like 3 months ago and I haven't made it. So there's no way that I can bring my brother-in-law a fully knit sweater and not bring my mother-in-law anything for Christmas. Like there's no way I will be disowned from the family and like not able to return ever. So I've asked her, she wanted a cute little Ecru summer top. Fine, we're doing it in crochet. This is the Florence Tee by somebody whose name I have forgotten. I'm holding it here because it maybe looks better. Maybe we can try this up here. Can you see this pattern? It's just like these cute little granny squares. They don't take very long. I'm just really dragging my feet and I've never made a crochet garment before. So I'm just gonna make this into something for her. It's a join as you go. It should be okay. I was a big crocheter before I started knitting, but the crochet has really fallen by the wayside. But she wanted a crochet top. She picked this one, so we're going for it. I am knitting some from my stash, but I also bought like enough to round out a sweaters quantity for this. Drops Cotton Merino. Super cheap, but it's nice. It's washable. It's in the Ecru. It's not like a buster, stash buster, bank buster, wallet buster, something buster. It's relatively affordable and it's good quality. Mr. Does Knitting has a sweater in this and it's holding out pretty well. It's a couple years old now. So that's the other thing that I'm going to knit next is this. And I think because we're approaching actually Christmas, that it might have to be like a square a day sort of thing. Because otherwise, if I don't do a square a day, I think that I'm never going to do it. I ordered this yarn during the summer. So like June, July. It's just been sitting in my closet, my yarn stash. And I haven't been doing anything about it. But this actually does need to be knit up. So that is the last project that I wanted to discuss. And, you know, we'll get a little bit of summer vibes in the middle of autumn, I guess. But yeah, so those are things that I'm doing where I'm actually knitting from stash that's been sitting there. And hopefully, you know, you do something. You can either do it with the project that you intended it for, or like with the black one is you just use the yarn for something else. I was going to order new yarn for that one, but I was like, stop, you have 10 skeins of black worsted weight that you're not using. Knit that up. You can always order more. You can use the other yarn for another project. I think I'm at like, after these are done, I'll probably be at like sweater 15, 16 for the year. And I'll have another chance to use it. So it will all be fine. Anyway, that is what I have. I hope you guys are all doing well, that you're hanging in there, that you had a happy Halloween, and I will check you later. Be kind to yourself, especially right now. Everybody's a little testy. So be nice to yourself and be nice to other people, all right? Don't be a dick. And I will talk to you later. Goodbye.